So now that we've have the fun stuff out of the way, there's also been some unfun stuff happening over here with the weasels, right? On this Bad Takes Part 2. It's kind of a nothing burger, really. There's nothing too interesting in it. But if you really want me to look at it, we can do it. It's kind of mostly stupid craps and shit takes. I mean, it says bad MvM opinions, right? So it is kind of bad all over the place. Nonsense, really. But there's like maybe one thing in there, one thing where it's certified Wheezy moment in a way. No. Fucking. What the shit?
You guys really seem to like me calling my audience a bunch of poopy dum-dums the first time around. So obviously, we gotta do ourselves a part 2. Now, like last time, there will be a fair bit of takes here that I actually find a lot of agreement with. They just so happen to be hot button topics that have a wide range of viewpoints among different community members. That is, until I make my opinion known, because 80% of you are sheep, and I'm the sexiest shepherd on the farm. I think you all get it by now. Bring on the opinions. If Valve ever updates the game again, there shouldn't be any more Australiums added. I feel like we have enough, and adding any more would take away from their status. I actually understand that rationale. A lot of people have asked for an Australian variant of pretty much every weapon in the game, and I've always thought of that as massive overkill. Like, when we get to the point where we're coding shit like the Razorback or the Hot Hand in gold, you're just devaluing the Australian qualifier entirely. That being said, I still do want another generation of Australiums. There are so many iconic TF2 weapons that don't have Australian variants already, and they really should have them, arguably over many of the ones we have today. Plus, on the off chance that Valve ever decides to bundle a few community missions together and make a tour out of it, new Australiums would get everyone rushing to the door. Everything you could possibly need is there and ready to go at a moment's notice. The missions? Already done. The Australian redesigns? Already done. The funneling mechanism a la the seasonal crates? Already done. And you just know that TF2'ers past and present would jump at the opportunity to give Valve some free advertising. It is the most brain-dead, obvious update idea in the world, and I hope that one day Valve gives it a chance. Explosive...
They won't. So yeah, the Australians are kind of limited to what we have, right? And if you think back to 2012, or well, 2013, when Two Cities released, it's been over 12 years, right? And we've been stuck with the same Australians, so it would make sense to just cycle in more variations. I do agree with that we don't have to have an Australian version of every weapon, right? Would you really like to have this Australian hot hand? Maybe some degen out there would love that. Would you love to have a fucking Australian back scratcher or some random bullshit weapon that nobody really uses? Probably doesn't require it, right? So if you, but you could keep it on like weapons that people like to use. I mean, we have an Australian rocket launcher and the black box, so you could just extend it to some more weapons that people like to use, like direct hits, for instance, right? So it's just some more primarily used weapons, not just some obscure ones, and you could just cycle through those drops. You don't even have to have new tools, which I don't believe they will ever make new tools or use community-made missions as a new tool. I don't think they will ever do that. So they could just cycle it over year. Yeah, Australian Girardi, that would be really useful, right? I mean, it's mostly yellow already. So they could just decide, hey, next year, new season of Australian drops, and that alone would make people go back into MvM, farm those weapons, try to game the system, right? Make a profit out of it. So you wouldn't necessarily even need new missions or new tools in general. You could just have the seasonal switch of Australians, which would also stop the dilution, of the whole amount of Australians in existence as well. You might even have a super extra other rare item as Australium drop, you could make that, for instance, an item that doesn't even have any availability anymore. Like, I don't know, an Australium Black Rose. Would that be useful for every other class? No. Does it have to be? Probably not, but, you know, that's just a random idea. You know, could just do that. But I do technically agree that you could have more. We shouldn't overdo it, right? Like they're overdoing it with the unusual effects right now, where it's just so many unusual effects. There's nothing unusual about them anymore, other than I can't remember any of these fucking names. And I'm not even trying to remember any of these names. For me, it's like the first 3 gens, maybe the robo effects or some other Halloween effects that came in afterwards that kind of feel still like TF2, but all this other shit they cram in every season is just too much for me. So you should have it at a level where it still keeps that feeling of being something special in it. My personal opinion. But I'm sure the trail domains would disagree with it. They could just probably say 1 out of 1 unusual, never seen before, blah blah blah, 5,000 keys or whatever.
Backstabs is actually a good idea for fixing Spy. Spy is in desperate need of crowd control, and this gives it to him. He also only gets 1 or 2 stabs in before he draws aggro, so he essentially has a built-in cooldown for whenever he can use it. There is a world where this design concept works, and works well, but you can't port over the damage multipliers from the explosive headshot upgrade and expect it to be balanced whatsoever. Yes, Spy only gets a few stabs in before zooming away in his Deadringer shell, but what happens if the AoE damage is enough to wipe out all the crowd single-handedly? Having a cooldown doesn't mean shit if it's only elapsing during periods of downtime where you're waiting for some fresh bots to drop down. I think if you kept the AoE output low, like say 50 damage a stab, that would still allow Spy to put out some good AoE damage while keeping him balanced and rewarding more risky positioning. You can get 2 stabs in, not get any kills via the explosion, but safely retreat out of there, or you can shoot for a 3 to 4 chain stab, a much riskier play given how fast the robots lock onto you, but if you pull it off, you'll wipe out any horde that isn't comprised of small robot heavies. Actually, the more I think about this idea, the more I kinda like it. Spy's main issue is that anytime a giant isn't in play, he's just kinda spinning his wheels. Getting backstabs on small individual robots that are already half dead is just extremely unengaging. Either give him a decent crowd control game, or give him a money magnet so he can do something in the meantime. Because as of right now, Spy just isn't cutting it for the average player. Almost.
So yeah, the explosive backstab thing is kind of really stupid. If you read it like this, it kind of makes maybe sense, but if you think about it some more, it's kind of like, why would you give the class that already does the most DPS on paper, right? That can dish out tons of damage already, even more ability to just deal with everything else. It's just invites another gas passer situation, which would be even worse considering that a sapper can disable multiple robots, right? Which would just give you free backstabs, which would just trigger the explode on ignite, or explode on backstab, excuse me, continuously, right? As long as you have something that's stabbed to be able to be stabbed. And the 2 backstabs at most thing is kind of up in the air as well. If you're really good or work together with somebody else, let's just say a medic, right? So this comment definitely comes from somebody that doesn't know how Spy and the synergy between other classes works that well. You could just abuse that to fucking Kingdom Come, right? You could just get stab over and over. And every time you would trigger 50 fucking damage in a radius, right? Like explosive headshot. Just a little bit less powerful, right? So it's really just stupid, okay? And Spy being bad as crowd control is true, right? But do they have to be good at that? No. Spy is more of a specialist class in the actual game, right? In casual. Even in comp, you can say that, right? Certain classes don't have a bigger role. There's always some of the main classes like Scout, Soldier, Demo, Heavy, Engineer, maybe on some off classes showing off, right? And then there's Medic. So does Medic need a crowd control option too? Like, how about that? Does every class need to have one? No, because it doesn't make any sense, okay? And the same with Pyro, who already had options to crowd control in a way by just fucking burning shit down, right? It didn't need the gas powder either. Or not in that form that began it officially anyway. So it's really just stupid to give another powerful option to a class that's already powerful in its own right, specialized on killing giants. So just nonsense, really, and should never be a thing. You might as well give him an explosive sample at that point.
Everyone is against random crits at this point.
And even if you make the argument of just getting a couple stabs and then getting away, you could make Spy more reliable crowd control if you kind of work it together, backstabs and sapper. So maybe you could sap something with a bigger radius. The more you sap, the faster your sapper recharges maybe, or something. Or you sap something with the sapper, you get a stab on a sapped robot and that recharges your sapper again. So you kind of work it in that way, but it's also not really what Spy is supposed to be doing in the first place. But it could be maybe like a Demo Knight kind of subclass thing.
But so many people think they should be kept in MvM. It's hypocritical to whine about them in the base game while also seeing it as objectively good in PvE. What? No. Random crits are still an extremely contentious topic in the community. The debate around them is nowhere near settled. Take that from me, a multi-thousand-hour soldier main who can pull godlikes out of his ass like candy. I happen to like them very much, actually. But even if you find yourself in the anti-crit cohort, it's not hypocritical to prefer them in PvE. By and large, TF2 players like random crits when they're the beneficiary, but hate them when they're on the other end of that bargain. Man vs. Machine does not have this problem. No human player is on the ass end of a random crit exchange, ever. Even the argument of devaluing skill progression as a concept just doesn't really pertain to MvM all that much. There's so much upgrade power creep within the game mode that crits are basically a non-factor in deciding as to whether or not you'll win or lose a particular encounter. This, again, is unlike in PvP, where at the very least there's a case to be made. It's not a repudiation of values when the variables at play are innately different. I wouldn't be too quick to call hypocrisy on this one.
So random crits, it's been a fucking debate since the game introduced it at some point, right? Do they make sense? Not really. I mean, you're getting rewarded because, right? It's just random luck. Does it feel fair? No. Is it fun if you just get one and then kill like half the team in casual? Probably. But if you're at the other end of it, it's not fun, right? So it shouldn't really have a place in game. It also just makes you maybe rely on them a little bit too much, where you're just banking on having them. And the system behind the random crits is also kind of stupid, right? The more damage you do, the higher your chance is of getting a random crit, especially with like melee weapons too. So it's just the whole clusterfuck that should have been out of the game like years ago, just like with random spread, which also doesn't make any fucking sense gameplay wise, right? Like, why would your pellets out of the scalar gun just randomly spread and then align in such a way that you don't hit your target at all? Makes no sense, right? So that should go, and random crits in MvM like have little impact. Maybe some weapons would get trashed over it. There's already weapons that don't random crits in the first place. You can just crit canteen if you really want to crit a weapon that doesn't random crit. It's kind of pointless in MvM to maybe a minimal impact at all, and the robots definitely don't need random crits either. They already upset me enough with their random bullshit that they're pulling out of their ass. And most robots already mini crit boosted, so random crits on their side doesn't make any sense either, so it's just stupid, really.
Who don't know what they're doing and refuse to acknowledge your pleas are the most infuriating teammates, apart from griefers, to play with. Not necessarily because they're useless, but the mere sight of a dispenser on the ground next to a sentry makes my heavy main blood boil. Oh yeah, hogging the dispenser all to yourself instead of placing it in an area where your teammates will use it is one of the biggest etiquette failures within the game mode by far. It is literally the epicenter of basically every class's fundamental game plan. Without one in the appropriate position, everyone needs to fall back and fight over ammo boxes, all while the robots continue to pour in. Most of the time, it's an honest mistake, and if you ask a new engineer to move it, they'll usually oblige. But unfortunately, that call is nowhere near 100% of the time. This is another reason I don't really subscribe to the hardcore, let people play how they want mentality. Because when playing how you want ends up creating easily avoidable problems for every single one of your other teammates in a cooperative game mode, mind you, it then ceases to become a virtue. And if you get kicked for being a selfish little dispenser whore and refuse to move it up when asked, your 5 other teammates are under no obligation to keep you around. 2 cities.
So yeah, the dispenser thing, I mean, that could just be anything, really. Do they just not understand or new to the game? Do they not understand what dispenser range does, how it works, what it puts shit? Like, it could be fucking a billion things, right? If they don't listen to what you want them to do, they might just not even understand what language you're using. There's a bunch of servers that just use Russian, and I just don't know what they want from me when they talk to me in Russian. The same could be if you talk to somebody in English, right? So, but yeah. And even if you have it on the ground somewhere, have it make sense, okay? You have dispenser range, right? What does range do? You have the dispenser and it ranges, right? Out. So you have more space to get ammo, to get healing from. And it makes the most sense to have a dispenser in a position where it actually reaches people, right? So even if you have it on the floor somewhere, if you put it away in a corner or behind the wall, the efficiency of that range already diminishes, right? The dispenser's here, you have a wall here, like what does it fucking do? You can't get anything from this side if the dispenser's on this side. Like, just put it around somewhere where it actually has the range effect properly, right? And preferably in a position where it doesn't get immediately crushed by whatever the fuck's coming in, or get obliterated by rockets or whatever. But it doesn't get immediately blasted the moment the robots fucking show up, right? Most of the time they will ignore it over everything else happening, other fucking players or sentries or whatever, right? So just put it on the floor where it's actually useful, not behind walls. So that's really my biggest problem, really, with all the meta spots and like all these missions, really. And then there's always the nesters, which you can't really do much about, right? You just either have to try to explain it or suffer through it, or you could try to kick them. I mean, you got options, you can deal with it. There's also ammo canteens, so you can still work around an engineer that's not up to the level you would want him to be. But I think the people that just refuse to listen while understanding you are the ones that probably deserve a kick, right? So there's no debating there. You got the choice, and then when the kick mode thing comes up, they're just like, huh? What? Why? I mean, I get it if you get talked to during a wave and there's shit going on, but at some point you gotta realize when there's people spamming, put dispenser here or whatever the hell, right? Just gotta enter your ears at some point.
Is boring. Missions like Steel Trap and Gear Grinder provide a variety of maps to keep the brain stimulated. Okay, so this one I've actually come around to over time, in no small part due to needing to constantly grind out missions for background footage. Personally, I love 2 cities. Manhattan and Rottenburg are my forever maps, and I do think they allow for the most interesting team compositions. Stacking multiple heavies and shooting forward is much less practical there. That being said, in the past year or so, the gap has definitely closed for me. Not really for Steel Trap, because that tour's 6 missions long and fuck that noise, but the added variety of Gear Grinder is definitely a huge bonus. 2 cities is definitely fun, but oftentimes you're just kinda holding the same chokes over and over. Ditto with Mecha if you have a sniper. Gear Grinder is different, and not only are there 3 different maps, but because they're all expert difficulty missions, you're usually getting pushed back to multiple different sections of them. So there are more maps to play on, and when you do, you're fighting on a higher percentage of terrain than you are on other tours. It's something I've come to appreciate, and I've been queuing it a fair bit more than I used to. I think
So the tour thing, I mean, it's the same, right? Eternal debate. Some people are just grinding it out, 3 tickets, right, for an Aussie instead of the 4 tickets, but then you also get different loot things, and you could just, mission-wise, I don't know, Mecha is just cancer to me. everything that has a decoy in it is just canceling me, and Gear Grinder is probably the best choice if you want more variety of like things and a little bit more action, as Two Cities has been done to death and just too much powerful shit there that just trivializes even the things that are supposed to be more dangerous. As in Gear Grinder, you just have less credits to start out with, and overall I think so that also limits your options in a way, like what makes more sense to play there. That's why you had the 3 heavy stacks over maybe a first wave soldier pick, because soldier takes a little bit of time and more money to kind of get going some more. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just gonna be a dead weight, plus the fucking air blast pyros that are there just to destroy your ass as well. So it has all its positives and its negatives in a way, but not really a bad take, really. I mean, if you ask me. Manworks, I mean, that map's okay. I think there's some... It's small, and I think there's some bullshit spots where you can just god rock as well. So, yeah. I mean, it kind of exists on every map in some form. It's not as bad as Big Rock, which is like 66% of mecha.
Teens, ammo, uber, and crits shouldn't exist in MvM. They're a waste of credits, and an NG/medic can do their job without having to spend the extra credits. Anyone claiming that canteens are a waste of credits, I'm just going to assume they don't know how the game mode works. In fact, crit and upgrade canteens are often touted as being overpowered for how they can single-handedly bypass any risk in playing too recklessly. It is true that medic and NG can fulfill the roles of crit boosting, uber charge, and ammo relief throughout the mission, but that doesn't tell the whole story. Medic can only use one type of medigun and only uber one player at a time, and the engineer's dispenser can sometimes be too far away or not in play to begin with. This is what makes ammo canteens well worn in the early game. It lets you go hyper aggro as heavy, lets you keep camping on your perch as sniper, and lets you cover a flank route all by yourself as a soldier without needing to worry about retreating for ammo. Crit canteens are also a godsend, letting you deal with every single massive threat in the game at your own discretion without needing to rely on a fully charged crit screen. Uber canteens are also extremely useful, particularly on classes with high risk profiles like Pyro, Spy, and even Scout wants them every once in a while for some extra insurance and collecting stray cash. And need I mention the Medic's Canteen Specialist upgrade, which lets you share all of these perks on command at a discounted price. Canteens are broken. Everyone should be learning how to maximize them. People who
kind of brain dead take over here, because at one point he's like, teamwork, right? In the game about teamwork, and then he was like, hey, you have this thing that completely eliminates teamwork, you should learn how to fucking abuse it. So yeah, I'm definitely not a fan of canteens. I've never been. I don't think that's a big secret over here, right? So canteens, in my opinion, could just fucking land in the trash, okay? If that's gone, I don't care. Will it suck for engineer? Probably, but that's also where the teamwork aspect comes around, right? If your sentry goes down, you have your team that can try to support you while you build back up your shit, right? So there's more teamwork aspect involved instead of you just having a button that fucking saves you and kills everything, in a way, right? So you would have to have more cooperation, and for me that's just a positive at the end of the day. So one guy can't just go off and fucking kill everything that's coming by just having 3 canteens with crits in them. So they're broken. Simple as that. They're broken. In the right hands, they're absolutely broken. Even the noobs, you know, for the noobs, for the new players, it's kind of a crutch, get out of jail free card if they're in a troublesome situation. Just spam some canteens at it, okay? And most of the time it works. So what do you learn? You don't learn anything on how to fucking deal with the situation appropriately. You just press the button to get out of jail free. in a way, right? Out of the jiffy that you ended up in, or whatever the fuck it is. So canteens, my end, could go fuck themselves.
Who hate on idle rocking have no critical thinking skills. It doesn't sap the fun out of the game as hard as gas does. Oh, you're one of those people. My first intuition was to label this as bait, but I know there's a shockingly large amount of high tours who have this same opinion. I've never Rancho Relaxo'd an entire mission due to a gas pyro on my team. I have, however, done that multiple times when a sniper opts to speedrun a big rock mission. Giving idle rocking a pass when you'd never grant the same courtesy to a gas user is the most brain-dead cope that has infested the game mode, and it's good to see people recognizing that double standard more and more. War Thunder is...
So yeah, guard rocking makes you a bitch, okay? You're a pussy, alright? You're using a pussy rifle and using a pussy strategy, okay? Grow some balls and get in the fight, alright? So yeah, the gas passer thing, oh my god, it's too strong. But when I'm standing on this rock and I'm invincible, please, show me how it's done. How do you stand on this rock so majestically without being touched by the robots? It's just, oh, please let me kiss your feet. Come on, man. Just get over yourselves, right? Guard rocking, stupid. You're more stupid than the fucking gas, alright? Fuck off.
It's the
We have some shilling over here.
greatest game.
Because I get paid by War Thunder. Get out of here.
Containing the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account status. Thank you very much to War Thunder for the video sponsor. Back to your bad opinions.
Yes, thank you.
Two-way tele isn't actually that useful, as the only class for whom kill binding back is detrimental is also the fastest to reach the shop on foot. Again, I'm convinced that anyone with this opinion just doesn't know how the game mode works. Now granted, this one does have a bit more legs. New players will often never use the two-way tele even if you buy it, so on a shittier team, it's pretty much chucking credits into the void. But the rationale for this claim was that every class can kill bind without any detriments, and that just isn't true. Scout loses money overheal, Soldier loses banner charge and airstrike heads, Pyro loses gas and flog charge.
No, Pyro does lose gas, alright? If the Pyro dies, gas just keeps on fucking charging itself, even if he's dead. Right? If you have a charge on your gas, and then you die, and then you respawn, you will have the same charge. You don't lose the charge, okay? So that's just not right.
Demo sticky traps get deleted alongside any Eyelander heads. Medic loses both shield and ubercharge. Sniper loses heatmaker focus, and the NG's buildings are left defenseless while he's stuck in the spectator jail. But also, it usually isn't even faster unless you buy back instantaneously, which just ends up trashing thousands of credits across all of your teammates over the course of a mission. The way I see it, two-way teleporter is always as optimal as your team wants it to be. You can buy some extra crit res before a giant drops, increase your damage by 25%, buy a crit canteen for added wipe protection. Two-way teleporter bounces around between being completely pointless and one of the most broken upgrades in the game. Where it lands on that continuum is entirely at your team's own discretion.
So yeah, two-way teleport. A lot of people say, hey, two-way wave one, gotta have it. Some people have it and low tools, like you said, don't even fucking use it. Like, if you have somebody that makes use of it, okay, cool, fine. But most of the time they're just going back to buy some upgrade or buy more canteens, right? Because that's my fun stuff to do with it. But to me, two-way teleporter always was more of a thing for endurance type missions, or just to maybe save something getting past the front lines, like a giant scout running, for instance, right? But endurance type missions tend to be going on longer, so you go back more frequently to spawn, to upgrade, you switch out, maybe even upgrades if it's just a singular wave thing, which you can actually do, right? So you can adjust what's going on more. I never saw it as like a thing to just go back to spawn to power up some more through your fucking magic canteen buttons or whatever. So is it necessary? No. Is it useful in the right hands? Yeah, but you can live without it as well. Like I wouldn't go and like shout at some guy because he doesn't have two-way. The same way I wouldn't shout at some guy because I don't know, he bought a disposable. Like I don't give a fuck.
Prejudice towards low tours is justified. People don't want to risk dealing with potentially bad teammates who might not ever listen to their advice. Prejudice is a bit of a strong word, but apprehension? I would agree with that. I don't think most MvM onlookers realize just how common it is for a new player to do something that negatively affects the entire team, and despite repeated attempts at communicating, they just don't listen. The aforementioned dispenser hogging is a great example, but even things like spamming air blast or shooting uber medics become unbearable when done repeatedly, especially when your entire team is pleading to cut it out. Like, you might think this is a rare 1% occurrence, but ask any high tour in the biz, and they'll confirm it's way more prevalent than people think. The fear isn't that new players will make mistakes. That comes with being new, and most players are completely understanding of that. It's making the mistakes, refusing to correct the mistakes, killing all the fun for everybody involved, and then acting defiant and butthurt when it turns out people don't really like playing with you that much. I think this applies to both ends, by the way. Low tours are more likely to fuck shit up and not listen to reason, so high tours are apprehensive about playing with them. But also, high tours are more likely to be easy to anger with a hair trigger temper, so low tours are apprehensive about them. At the end of the day, the best way to reduce the stigma in both directions is to call out bad behavior wherever you see it. Do that enough times, and the player base will naturally weed out the bad apples.
Yeah, low tools. I mean, everybody started MvM at some point. The first people that started out had no idea, right? So they kind of laid the groundwork. There's guides out there, so you could say there's no excuse today anymore to be bad at the game, but there's also a more interesting aspect of learning how it's done while actually doing it before reading an encyclopedia of how the fucking game mode works about every intricacy that I don't even fucking know about. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. But I always was someone that's more that enjoys learning more by doing it instead of just reading the textbook and then fucking trying to apply it at the thing. And MvM tends to be kind of chaotic, so it might not even be able to be applied as you read it in the textbook as well. So it's kind of helpful in a way, but also not. And you gotta just, I think a healthy mix is fair enough, right? So high tours being apprehensive, like he says, sure, right? Some people just can't deal with Air Blast Man number 5000 over here, or triple engineers that never put a dispenser down, and you still run out of ammo every 2 seconds or whatever. But to me personally, that's kind of the joy of playing with low tools as well, by just solo queuing into random teams. Like anything could fucking happen, right? The most chaotic thing could happen, but you could also be on a team that just understands what needs to be done and reacts to what is going on. So that's also a great thing, right? You're on a team and you think, oh my god, there's like 4 tools in here, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean, right? They could have had 1,000, 2,000 hours of experience in MvM playing Community Potato or Moonlight Missions and have vast MvM knowledge already without having like a fucking gigantic number to show, right? And they can't fucking slap that on the table and say, hey, look at me, I know what I'm doing. And that's not even a measurement for the high tools either. You have so many tools on some guy and he still doesn't know how the fucking spawn system works, where something comes from, or placement or whatever. And we all have good or bad days, right? We always someone fucks up at some point somewhere down the line. So not really a 100% measure of how good or bad somebody is. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a cooperative game. Like, do you want to play with these low tools that you queued into? You should probably make that decision before you start queuing for the game, right? Like, if you don't want to fucking deal with this, maybe get some friends to play together with, or just fucking don't do it if you can't handle it. It's easy as that, really. And that goes both ways as well. If the low tools have some unreasonable fear that they're being talked down on or getting fucking pressured into doing things they don't want, just play with some friends, right? But you're never running into like the worst situations possible where it's just people kicking you on random occasions, whatever you can think up of. Even though that's the more outlier situation there as well, where usually it's just a chill moment.
Rage upgrade for Heavy's minigun should be reworked to spray out a huge burst of bullets for massive damage. In principle, I like giving the Heavy some kind of offensive cooldown that would give his damage output the occasional heft, but realistically, crit canteens fill that niche well enough. Knockback Rage to me isn't even poorly designed beyond grounded push force not being included with every point of the upgrade, and also having it reset when you die. I don't think that's necessary at all. Sure, using knockback is definitely more of a hindrance than a benefit in the vast majority of situations, but you gotta remember the upgrade is a product of its time. Back in the early 2010s, missions were harder. Players weren't as good, refunds weren't infinite, credit bonuses were A+ or bust, and metas were much less refined.
You say 2010?
Sure, you beyond grounded push force not being included with every point of the upgrade, and also having it reset when you die. I don't think that's necessary at all. Sure, using knockback is definitely more of a hindrance than a benefit in the vast majority of situations, but you gotta remember the upgrade is a product of its time. Back in the early 2010s, missions were harder. Players weren't as good, refunds weren't infinite, credit bonuses were A+ or bust, and metas were much less refined. Getting pushed back to the hatch or the Manhattan gates was a much more common occurrence back when MvM was still finding its footing. In the current day, however, it's a textbook noob trap. New players...
I mean, it really depends on what team you are on, but it's less common. It still happens common enough on certain waves, right? When people don't know where something is coming from.
It's constantly activated in situations where it does nothing but give everyone more damage fall off and reduce the Heavy's damage overall. If new MvM players become conscious of those pitfalls, I don't really have any issue with the upgrade in its current state on a fundamental design level. It just needs a bit of tuning. The Bison...
Heavy Rage, right? It's kind of problematic, the way people use it, and I wish it would be something different too, but I don't think we're gonna see that, right? So we could come up with ideas like, for instance, Rage. How about it gives you something else, not knockback to the robots, but give you as the player some other ability, for instance, I don't know, maybe some increased damage resistance, or like being unable to be knocked back yourself by projectiles or air blasts or any other thing, like something like this that would maybe make it worth investing into in a way that gives you a benefit that you can activate when you see fit. But as established, knockback is just problematic. The way people are using it is not the way that you could be using it. That is strategically, right? We just saw him use it in a way that's not strategically by just separating giant medics from their heal target, which just makes them most of the time heal each other or just uber instantly themselves as well. So you can't kill them, but you could use it to save bump drops as well. So there's like some utility, or even if you want to push something in a pit, if the opportunity appears. Or you could even use it in a more interesting way where you just rage something up into the air as a giant and then have them take fall damage, which is a huge bonus, but is it worth the money you're investing and the position you need to have for it to work? Probably not.
Is an underappreciated secondary. So as it pertains to an optimal soldier, not really. You'll always have something left to upgrade on your rocket launcher or resistance tab before you hit the credit cap, and every banner in the game will synergize well with those upgrades much more than the Bison will. However, the Bison soldier, as far as meme classes go, dwarfs every single subclass in not just its power, but fun as well.
I mean, with the subclass talking, Demo Knight is kind of a subclass, so I would still say that Demo Knight is better than Bison Soldier in a way, but you could also debate about that.
In that respect, it is definitely underappreciated. Everyone should try out the Bison Soldier at least once. I'll run it pretty often in the late game alongside the Rocket Jumper for funsies. It's a loadout you can goof around with and not feel like that much of a burden. Replace oil.
I mean, Bison kind of does work. You watched this today? Nice. The Bison works, right? The real thing that's holding the Bison back is the slow projectile. Right? It would probably be better if it was just having a faster projectile. It was shooting and then hitting stuff in a more timely fashion, right? So there's just too much delay before actually something happens, but it's also not super strong. It's kind of easy to upgrade though, and it's really good on tanks as well, even early on. But would you use that over your primary, which is a rocket launcher? So you kind of need to have like a synergy thing where your primary just gets removed that to buff your secondary or yourself, so it makes more sense to actually use the Bison in a way. So there would need to be something there, just like with Demo Knight, where you have the booties and then you get more health for the Demo Knight play, right? Maybe something like this to make it actually a fun subclass, if you will. But you can still run it. I have run it before, just for shits and giggles. I think in that Colonel Johnson game, like, I don't know, a couple of years ago or something. You can still do reasonably well with it, but that also really just depends on what your team is how good your team is. I would never run this on a team that's already struggling, because they don't need more fucking bullshit going on than there already is. So if you use it on last waves, fair enough, right? If you still beat the wave without any problems, you don't see any problems, you can use it. It works well enough. But beyond that, it's kind of not underrated. It's kind of just underpowered in a way.
Spill.
Just like shotguns. You don't see anybody using shotguns, right? It's just like that. Just not as bad.
It's completely pointless. Fuck replacing it, just remove it entirely at this point. Oil spill is one of the biggest scams in the game, rivaling the default weapon prices on the in-game shop. The entire purpose of the mission is to fool unsuspecting players who don't know any better into losing money on a shitty, inferior version of the product that they're actually looking for. Almost no one intends to play oil spill with full knowledge of what they're getting themselves into. In fact, I'd argue that even on a monetary level, this hurts Valve. How many people are queuing into oil spill accidentally and have to suffer through a 30-minute queue time alongside unengaging missions for no chance at an Australian, by the way, and immediately write off the entire game mode as not worth playing? I don't know what the average ARPU is for the average MvM player, but whatever the margin, they're likely losing more money in player drop-off from oil spill's awful first impression than they are gaining money from the people buying tickets explicitly to play this one tour. Oil spill is a fucking scam. Do not make the mistake of ever playing it. Players should...
See, the thing about oil spill is it was intended to be, like when MvM came out, kind of a learning ground in a way, how things worked, right? For newer players and whatnot. But the way it's monetized now and the rewards you're getting out of it, it is more or less a scam, right? It's just a waste of money. The rewards you're getting are not worth what you put into. So I kind of would have loved to see this kind of changed into maybe, if Valve actually gave a shit about their players, right? Into kind of a tutorial thing that was totally free, that would maybe guide you through some situations that might be happening in MvM and to understand the game mode a little bit better, right? You could do it like the tutorial in game, which is also horrendously bad, but you could have some situations and explain to the players how things work, what some stuff on the top maybe means, symbol-wise, what things do, how tanks work, some shit like that, right? I'm sure if you had the intention and the love for the game and the game mode, you could easily kind of rebalance this and retool it in a way that it acts as a sort of tutorial stylized system or mission that introduces you to the elements of MvM, right? I'm sure you could do that if you really wanted to. Would that help ultimately Valve getting more people into MvM? I don't know. Does it hurt people getting into MvM? It might. I mean, there are some people that queue for oil spill because they see it's the easiest one, and then they don't find games, and it might just turn them off. Could be happening, right? But considering the amount of players that just go into two cities because that's the most talked about tour, the most, you know, up there tour, out there tour, that where the real stuff is at. I mean, people still think Golden Pan just drops from two cities, right? There's so many people that still believe that, even though it's all advanced missions, all advanced tours, and higher up that can actually have Australian and Golden Pan drops, which is a good change, right? But leaving oil spill out of that is kind of weird to me. Like, why would you not have the chance for Australian weapon drops, even in the easiest game mode, right? I just don't really understand it. It doesn't help the tour overall to not have it. And would it really change anything if the chance of playing oil spill and still having the chance of Australians and Golden Pans would still be there? I mean, would you still spend 6 tickets on it over maybe the other tours? I don't think so. It's kind of more like an interesting thing for newer players, maybe. Maybe if they actually go in as a new player, right? They play oil spill, they finish their tour, and then they actually see, oh my god, I actually got an item that's crazy good, right? Like an Australian or whatever, something more valuable, more interesting, more shiny than a bot killer. That might incentivize them some more to play like more of the game, more of the tours. If that chance was just in every tour, like, I don't really understand why it's not. It doesn't really make any sense to me, really. That chance could still be there, and still, like, the people that know how to play MvM would still not go to Oilspill in the first place, so more or less you're just hurting yourself by not having Aussie drops in all tours, because people still play Oilspill, because they might want to learn, or they don't know any better, but they still do it. Maybe not a lot compared to the other tours, but they would still do it, so why not just have it?
Consider their scouts' positioning and travel distance when killing robots, whether that means picking up the money themselves or not killing the robot. Okay, so this one's less of a hot take and more of an underappreciated one. If you kill a stray robot somewhere behind your team, always pick up the money. If you kill a spy while you're coming out of spawn, always pick up the money. Kill a robot in a more unorthodox location, always pick up the money. While Scout is the main money collector for the team, that's not a hard and fast rule. He can't be everywhere all at once. Scout should never be backtracking halfway through the map to collect money that your teammates were too lazy to pick up. If it's easily in view, help your Scout out and grab it while you can. Give Scout...
That money thing, I mean, does it really matter if you pick up, like, those $2? No. Not really. If it's like 100 or the scout is dead, you don't have a scout, obviously you want to fucking have the money, right? If you have the chance to do it in a fashion where it doesn't fuck you over some more, then you probably should or could do it, but does it really matter if you lose like $2 at the back end because the sentry maybe killed something or some guy turned around, shot a wall and killed themselves robot-wise? Right? They do that too, or they fucking jump off something, take fall damage and die. They get flung somewhere by a rocket, then take fall damage and die. Am I gonna run over there to pick up those $2? No. No, I'm not, okay? I'm not wasting my time traveling over to where those $3 fucking or $2 fucking dropped while everything else goes to fucking shit. I'd rather just support my team and fucking say good luck. Right? To those $2. It doesn't fucking matter, right? So the focus on the money is okay, but overly focusing on it is just not worth it at all, and it's not required either. Like, getting an A is fine. Getting a B is still fine. Getting a C sucks, but probably still fine. So the over-reliance on just, oh my god, I gotta get this money. I'm so tunnel vision, I gotta get this money. But meanwhile, there's like 3 robots deploying the bomb. Like, it's not necessary. It's when it's safe, okay, fine. But is it necessary? No. It's just not. Just fuck the money, basically. Okay.
The ability to see cash through walls, but maybe lower his pickup range a bit. I wouldn't mind that. You already have X-ray vision for bomb carriers. I don't see why faraway money would be a problem either. You don't even need to balance it out by nerfing his pickup range. I don't think he needs to lose anything for this basic quality of life addition. Valve removed
like seeing money through walls, is that really necessary? Like, there might be some money over there and it's like 20 meters or 20 feet away or whatever the hell, and then some scout sees it, and instead of staying at the front or helping the team where it's actually necessary, they just run off to grab some random cash that's fucking miles away because somebody else didn't pick it up. I don't know. Probably unnecessary, and it's kind of a requirement for scouts to understand where money drops, what money drops, and where it goes, where it could potentially be going as well. Kind of part of the scout game, right? Where you just have to actually, think, hey, this I saw this engineer, and he's dead now. The money didn't get collected. There's like 10 credits somewhere. Where could that money be? Over there, probably, because the engineer walks over there and sets up there or whatever. Or spies, technically. They usually spawn there. Maybe if I check there, then I can find that money or whatever, right? So just being like, oh, I got this cool fucking cheat sheet. I know where the money is. I don't need to think for myself. So it's kind of, I don't know, more brainless. Scouts don't really need that. I don't think so. They're already crying enough about money.
Removing the ability to see teammates' upgrades was a good move. No one wants to be told what to buy or how to play. Anyone who claims to be helping teammates by backseating their upgrades is bossy and obnoxious. To me, this is a radical oversimplification of what actually played out in real time. So for those who don't know, you used to be able to inspect the upgrades of your fellow teammates. This was patched in 2021 after TacoBot gained much more notoriety.
This is something that you can't really fucking confirm, can't even throw in. Like does it say here, update the man machine inspect command to only work for players in your party or in your friends list because of TacoBot? No. Did they change it because of TacoBot? I don't know. Does he know? How would he know? They probably didn't, right? And people can still shit on other people even without inspect nowadays. So what was it really the fucking reason? Who the fuck knows? Nobody knows. And throwing like TacoBot under the bus that they are also at fault for this somehow? I don't know, man. Can you really with 100% certainty say it's just their fault for this too? I don't know. You could just say how it is, right? People were harassed over the upgrades, and then Valve was like too pussy to actually fucking say, well, fucking deal with it, alright? No, they had to fucking remove it to people. Oh my god, the people on the internet, they said I have shit upgrades, please Valve, do something about it. Meanwhile, you can still go inspect what people upgrade by just going spectate, right? Like, did anything change over this? No, not at all. So, kinda. But TacoBot, were they at fault for this? I don't know, man. If you say so, like, people are gonna fucking believe it because you keep shitting on them all the time.
Funnily enough, this patch actually was the motivation for me starting up this channel, but that is entirely due to how much damage it did to the new MvM player experience. It used to be the case that veteran players could offer helpful suggestions to newer ones whenever a faux pas was made that could negatively impact the team. Things like not buying dispenser range, not buying explode on ignite, not buying projectile shield, not buying explosive headshot. All of this was easily accessible information right from the jump that alleviated any potential problems before they happened. Now, because checking teammate upgrades is disabled, veteran players have to go through 18 different fucking dialogue trees with each and every low tour they come across in order to replicate the exact same coaching that they were able to do way easier beforehand. And you know what happens now? They fuck off. They don't try. Experienced players, even the chillest, most helpful ones in the game, will often leave lobbies that have one too many noobs present because Valve decided to quadruple the amount of time it takes to help them out. And thanks to this newly minted communication barrier, the new meta, the new path of least resistance, is leaving new players out to dry instead of pointing them in the right direction. Did this patch achieve its goal of reducing toxicity? Well, technically, yeah. Anytime you kill off any communication venue between players, you'll necessarily remove all the occasional toxic encounters that come with it. So in that respect, mission accomplished. But this is textbook cutting off your nose to spite your face. Frankly, even the benefits of this are heavily overstated, because drama isn't removed, it's just kicked down the road until someone gets a face full of the problems in real time, usually in the middle of the first or second wave. So now, a lot of players just end up leaving because it's not in their best interest to stick around. And even the players who do stick around, who theoretically could be toxic, you're not eliminating the toxicity, you're just delaying it. And again, all of those potential issues that lead to the dramas that happen later on could be sorted out and fixed within 60 seconds of the group being formed. This was an extremely useful tool for newer players trying to get better at the game. Ever wonder why a high tour is doing so much damage? You can easily check. Ever buy an upgrade that could significantly help the whole team? Someone can easily tell you. Ever have a teammate that accidentally bought an upgrade that literally doesn't work even 10 years later? That would be good to find out, and find out early. The first question a new MvM player will almost always ask is, what should I upgrade? And this is why I wholly reject the idea that advising a new player is inherently toxic behavior, even when unprompted. Almost every new player doesn't want to cause unnecessary problems for the team. They don't want to be a burden on the people they're playing with. They just need proper guidance. Guidance that Valve has made much more difficult to pass around. If you want my extended thoughts on this topic, I made an 18-minute long video on it like a year and a half ago. I'll tag it at the end of the video, so go watch it then if you're interested. So
yeah, the inspect thing is one of the worst things they ever changed about MvM, for the negative side, obviously, because what they're really hurting is just the low tools again, the newer players, because now they might be subjected to people telling them what to do more, even, because we can't tell what somebody has, or on the other side, they can't tell what we're doing, right? If some guy says, this guy is really good at soldier or demo or whatever, I want to see what they upgrade. You can't, right? You can't improve yourself by just seeing what people that have spent more time, have accumulated more experience in the game mode are doing, right? Without reaching out, maybe asking them what you should be doing, just asking for advice. And there's some people out there that still like continue to help low tools, right? Newer players by giving advice, but that's also dependent on like every person involved in that communication, because the way you say it might come off as bossy or pushy when people just want to try and figure shit out on their own, and so they blow you off, and then you're upset about it because you're just trying to help them, and it's kind of fucked in that way, right? But generally, I don't give out advice unless it's absolutely fucking necessary. Like maybe you should invest in the crit resistance when the whole team dies, when there's like one fucking rocket obliterating them. Maybe something like this, right? When it's really desperately needed that something changes. But if somebody asks a question about what helps and what does, if nobody answers, I generally still would like to help that person because they generally want to know, right? But I don't go out of my way to explain, hey, you do this and this and this and this to like 5 other people in the game, and that for every mission, there's just no end to it, right? And at some point you just get tired and you just can't be asked, really. And then that also funnels into what he's been saying, that you might just fucking get out of there, right? If there's too many people that you think might not be in the know or know how to do things, you might just save yourself the trouble and find some other game with other people that might have more experience, that you need to explain less to how things work. So it's a really bad change that ultimately just hurt the newer players, because the experienced players still know when somebody doesn't have good upgrades based on just stats in the scoreboard, or how they're behaving, how they're positioning themselves, and we can, on top of it all, just go and spectate and look at the upgrades anyway. Like, what did it change? Absolutely fucking nothing. It just made things worse. Which seems to be a Valve thing, so... right?
Should wear banana hats and make their hitboxes impossible to gauge. Well, that's one way to nerf Explosive Headshot. Roam Vision is not a good option to equip. Oh hey, here's another way of nerfing Explosive Headshot. So, Roam Vision is the feature that gives all the enemy robots fancy hats to wear, which is great if your team doesn't have a sniper, bad if your team does. Pretty much the only effect on gameplay is negative, so I'd have to agree on this one. Bot killers...
So yeah, the Roam Vision thing kind of means that I can't really say 100%, but it does change hitboxes in a way or something, or it makes it harder to distinguish where the head hitbox is supposed to be because of the obscure cosmetics that the robots are wearing. So having it enabled might be detrimental to your sniper play. So having it disabled actually does help you in a way, because it's more like visual discernible what you need to aim at. But it's been kind of a nothing burger for me for the most part, because I don't like sniper, I don't play a lot of sniper, so I had Roam Vision on myself for like the longest time, and then one day just decided to disable it. I mean, it doesn't really look that great in the first place, and I don't know, it doesn't really change too much to me. I mean, I could just enable it again and see how it goes, but ultimately it doesn't really impact me that much personally. But I can see why people say that it's better to just play without it.
Look way cooler than Australiums. The jiggle bones on the robot heads alone are enough to make me never want to equip them ever. I see a lot.
Bot killers suck, okay? They suck. I don't care if the gold, carbonado, diamond, or whatever the fucking random element you can throw on it, okay? They suck. They look like ass, and they suck, okay? And they are better than Australium? Fuck no, okay? Would you rather have this golden shiny thing, or would you have this stock looking fucking weapon with a robot head strapped on it? I don't know. I'd probably go with the gold instead of the little telephone strap attached to my weaponry.
A lot of sentiment around Heavy being boring because he's easy. I don't see that. Yeah, he's heavy, but he doesn't have to be difficult to play to be fun. Sometimes it's just fun mowing down a group of robots without giving a shit. I completely agree. I fundamentally reject the idea that a class has to be mechanically dense for them to be enjoyable, and Heavy in MvM is the best case study for that. All you do is move and shoot. Hold W for higher risk, higher reward. Hold S for lower risk, lower reward. And you know what? That's all he needs to be fun. Resistance is...
Yeah, fun, always subjective, right? People say Heavy is not fun because it's too one-dimensional, and in a way it is, right? But it's still fun, like you said, mowing down shit. Holding the line against an insurmountable looking threat, right? But you're still just sitting there, big chill, right? And just mowing it all down. So there's still some fun in there if you have a team that actually makes it still be fun. If you get absolutely demolished or pushed, or it's just continuously defend the hedge mode as heavy, kind of sucks. Right, you want to be in the front, maybe have a little bit more control, controlling the bomb, controlling positions, blocking and all that. There's still fun in there, and I think there's a lot of high toes who still enjoy playing heavy over other things, because heavy can leave more of a lasting impact by just being that huge bulwark that can just basically stop anything. Besides, like, I mean, you could stop tanks if you really wanted to, but you're not supposed to. But yeah, you could still enjoy it, and there's some alternatives you can also like dish out, like with your melee, for instance. You can deal with that on tanks. You can help there. You can equip the KGB to just maybe get random picks on Uber medics as well, right? And overall, I think heavy's still fun, even if it's not as explicitly insane. Like, you're bumping across the sky into fucking Uber medics and they explode and they fucking blasted everywhere. Meanwhile, you're the heavy and you're just like, I mean, you're probably not as ecstatic when you're doing that, but it's still fun when you enjoy it. Right?
Before damage upgrades as Pyro. It's not an awful trade, but as you get better at the game, you kind of realize that Pyro actually doesn't take too much damage if you know how to weave aggro properly. In the case of a full group of small robots, you'll typically get 1 or 2 locked onto you regardless, but most of the time, health on kill will keep you alive no problem. I do like to juggle resistances and damage upgrades on Pyro more so than basically every other class, but the best way to keep yourself safe as Pyro is to only take fights you know you can handle. Once you have a good intuition of when to go in and when to tap out, you'll benefit much more from damage upgrades than anything else. And even if you do miscalculate the situation, well, that's what gas is for.
So yeah, I think you can do it like that, where you go more primarily on the resistance side, but generally you kind of want to have like a balance with it in a way. If you have somebody that knows how to support you properly, like you have a pocket as Pyro, you can go full damage and nothing happens to you, right? And so the situation always needs to come into play there as well in a way. But you technically could do it and then survive more situations, but you're also doing less damage, so you might put yourself into more danger despite having more resistance, right? Because stuff doesn't die as fast. So you want to find a balance where you survive what's coming to you, but you also kill what's coming at you. So finding a good balance where it works out on like a solo queue perspective does make more sense than just going with full res before investing in the damage. I did it once on the backbone recently, which did work out quite well on Manhattan, right? But damage when it's tanks, exactly. Like the tank doesn't shoot you, right? So those resistances you spend don't do anything for you, but damage on tanks does. So you gotta find a balance where it actually helps you. People also expect you to deal with tanks as Pyro a little bit more than other classes, right? So if you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing on tanks, they might find that you're not contributing too much to the situation overall as well, which is evident by all the gas mains out there, right? Yeah, sticky tank. Yeah, I know. But even the sticky tank doesn't directly target you. We had more tanks where they actually target you directly, right? Which are way more dangerous than the sticky tanks, in a way. And you can still walk around the sticky tanks, right? They always shoot forward or stuff's landing on walls or whatever. You can still see what could potentially kill you, even though there's a lot of people that apparently don't have eyes and still die to that shit. But you get the idea, right? So finding a good balance is probably better on like random teams solo queuing if you don't have somebody that actually actively supports you and understands what you want to do. But you could also just go ham play around on aggro as well. That also works. If you have a team that can actually hold their own and pull aggro, so you can do your thing as pyro as well. So going full res over the damage is a bad take, really. I mean, could you invest more into resistance because you're less experienced as pyro? Absolutely. And then you kind of flesh it out, like you balance it out some more, you find out where your threshold is, what you can take before you can retreat, before you have to retreat and then go back in and how things work. You could do that, but ultimately you just want to have a good balance where you're not a fucking dead weight, right, at the end of the day.
These shouldn't be the most profitable tour 100% of the time. That 100% of the time qualifier is an interesting caveat because it does make me wonder how rotating loot tables on a weekly basis would play out. It would have the added benefit of incentivizing new players to try out the other tours, but there are a lot of Two Cities loyalists out there, and I don't think they'd be all too happy about their main tour getting a sizable downgrade in profitability. Probably best to leave things as they are, but I do wonder what the consensus would be if MvM started off like this from the beginning. Ultra...
So yeah, you could rotate loot, but I wouldn't rotate it, like give Two Cities bot killers all of a sudden, right? And then put the killstreak kits on Gear Grinder or Mecha Engine, for instance. That's a bad change, right? Because you might not want to go and play those things just to get what you previously got. Right, and you might not enjoy getting bot killers or whatever, but you could still balance it out better, where you could have maybe both worlds something. Like you could have, instead of the random weapon, you could also get some robot parts on the other thing, but to have actually use of the robot parts, you would have to play Two Cities in a way, or you could have something where you need bot killers to actually like put into a recipe or something, so it kind of feeds into itself in a way, right? So like the chemistry sets that we have or had before, where you need random strange weapons to be input into to get a strangifier out of, you could funnel bot killers in that in a way that maybe it's required for a killstreak kit, but even then it's probably just easier to trade for it than to actually go and play that other tool. So I don't know, it might make sense, it might not make sense, it might just make it all more convoluted or complicated. Generally I would just have the same loot, maybe distributed more equally. Like I don't really like just getting a random weapon drop and a bot killer at the end of the other tools. Like what does that really give you? Fucking It's nothing really. I don't like bot killers in the first place, so you will probably never see me fucking hit 100 tours in any other fucking available tools at all, because there's just no incentive for me to go there. Right, so.
Controversial take. Man versus machine toxicity is a good thing, as it separates the wheat from the chaff. The players who actually want to improve and get good at the game will power through it, while the bad players who don't want to improve will get discouraged and quit. It's a trial by fire, only the strongest will survive. Bro, this isn't fucking Avatar. How much of a fucking fantasy land do you have to live in to believe that culturally enforced toxicity is somehow a virtue? That's a one-way ticket to creating an environment so intolerable that no one without masochistic tendencies would ever want to get involved. I'm not even one of these hardcore anti-gatekeepers. I think gatekeeping often needs to happen, but basing it on whether or not you have enough resolve to stomach dealing with emotionally stunted man-children every other mission, I don't think that's a metric that should be subject to a fucking purity test. Get real. Like, fuck any discussion of morality or ethics because, quite frankly, I don't care. On a purely practical level, everyone has an interest in the MvM player base remaining alive and healthy. In order for this to continue long term, you need new players giving the game mode a shot. You can address player issues that negatively affect the team without being a screeching monkey over it. It's not that serious. You guys are fucking weird. I am a...
Yeah, I don't know, that's just like a really bad opinion, like how is the toxicity a good thing? I don't know. Do you love getting shouted at constantly when you're fucking joining something? How would you fucking love it when you go shopping outside? You just go shopping, you wanna buy some bread, and then every person in the fucking shop just shouts at you, tells you you're a piece of shit, wants you to fucking go fuck off and die in the corner or something. That's just like a fucking toxicity cope for, if you ask me. Like, I mean, I'm toxic, but it helps these people, right? I'm not doing it because I like fucking shitting on others, right? I do it to fucking make them stronger players. Like, that's just bullshit, okay? You can't fucking tell me that's your real fucking take. That's just brain rot right there. Like, it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the game mode, it doesn't help the players, and the only thing it does is fucking boost your like minuscule ego by just shitting on random people for doing random things that you might not agree with.
The opinion that high tour toxicity is over exaggerated by low tours and is instead a symptom of people just butting heads for the sake of it. Felt like we needed a palate cleanser because, yes, I 100% agree. Players like that last guy are an incredibly small portion of the MvM community. The vast majority of high tours are completely calm, undramatic players who just want to chill and farm robots on their off hours. I do kind of disagree with the whole butting heads for the sake of it part. There are genuine, real divisions that can manifest between high tours and new players, but most people sort it out amicably or just leave and find another group. The rage bait you find on YouTube, it's nowhere near as common as you'd be led to believe. The Sandman.
So yeah, this is the thing that should be more in the limelight, right? The toxicity on MvM always stands out because the minority voices are always like the worst thing always gets brought to light more frequently than the nice things happening, right? Because there's more nice things happening, we don't talk about it. It's just all chill most of the time. And there's only a handful maybe of people that you could potentially run into that you really should be avoiding. But toxicity in MvM is kind of overblown, right? The moment you join a game, you don't land immediately into a game that fucking has 5 people berating you or something. And then you leave that game and join another game and there's another 5 people that berate you. No, that's not how it works, right? People just come here to fucking gamble, to just have a good time, maybe make friends or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely divisions in there somewhere, right? Different beliefs of, oh my god, idle medic, this guy doesn't use canteens, what the hell is he doing? This guy doesn't have two-way, what the hell is he doing? This guy doesn't have scores, what the hell is he doing? Like, there's some division over how you should or should be playing the game mode, right? Like, ideology-wise. But that doesn't make me go out of my way and like start a group and then devote my whole life towards that one goal of eradicating my opposition. Right, so it's just how it is, right? You like this, I like this. It's not compatible. Do we have to fucking kill each other over it? No. Let's just have to find a middle ground, get out of each other's way or something. And I get some people do it because they really love getting other people riled up as well. There's always those people. In any game, really, any group, any community you can potentially think of, there's always somebody that does that as well. So, yeah, but that's never the majority. It's always the minority, right?
And with the Mark on Hit upgrade, becomes a better fan of war, since the Mark for Death upgrade applies to both the ball and the melee. When people upgrade the Sandman with the Mark for Death effect, they're only seeing the newfound upside of being able to mark from range. What they don't see is what you're giving up for it, be it higher damage, higher resistances, or higher mobility, all 3 of which are more useful than long-range marking. It does let you get more uptime with your scattergun on giants, because you can apply the debuff while running in instead of wasting time switching weapons at close range, but that's usually only like a second and a half of DPS loss on the occasional giant, whereas the baseline damage upgrades will do more for you over the long run. It's not a bad upgrade, but it's only a strict upgrade in a vacuum. Compared to everything else you can spend your money on, it won't come out ahead the vast majority of the time. Uber can
So yeah, I don't know who or why they thought that giving the Sandman Mark for death for a 500 credit price, no less, would be a good decision to make. Because, like, what do you ultimately do with the Sandman? You want to mark something from afar, but that costs you 500 credits, and you also lose some health by just equipping the weapon in the first place. It's kind of stupid, really. I wish the Sandman had more of a utility, like the equipping the candy cane, for instance. You kill something, you spawn a small health pack, right? But the negative side is that you take more damage from explosions. So having the Sandman maybe in that league, in a way, doing something along those lines without having any specifically high priced upgrades. I mean, 500 credits is just insane, right? I spent 500 credits on my demo man grenade launcher to buy 20% upgrade, 20% more damage, right? I get 20% more damage on my grenade launcher for 500 credits. And I spent the same amount just to get Mark for death on a Sandman. That's just bad value, right? That's just not me. That's not just me. And then you have to spend extra money if you want more balls to throw. If you had maybe the ability to mark multiple things with the Sandman and not just one, like you could throw a ball at 3 things and all 3 things would be marked for death, then maybe I could see it, but unfortunately that's not how it works. So the benefit isn't really there for the money that you have to invest into the Sandman, the way it is right now.
Canteens on Medic are way too overrated. I understand why medics use Uber canteens. It lets them farm a full crit screed charge via the Uber Saw risk-free, and with maxed out Uber duration, you'll have 14 seconds of crits compared to the canteen's 5-second baseline. For me personally, I prefer to spam crit canteens to alleviate all threats as opposed to min-maxing the technical highest amount of uptime possible via the crit screed. Frankly, I don't really know if it's considered overrated or underrated, but what I do know is I prefer crit canteens to Uber almost every single time. MvM is a
So the canteen thing is kind of dependent on who you are asking. There's some people that run Uber who swear that just having more Uber canteens is better at that point, right? Because you can just chain Uber, and just be invulnerable for like ever, basically. On top of having shields as well. So it really depends on what you're using, what you want to do with it. Any of them being over or underrated kind of doesn't really make any sense, because you want to have what you can make use of. If a wave primarily consists of battalions, backup soldiers, having a crit canteen equipped, like, doesn't do shit for me, alright? So I might as well have Uber canteens at that point, if you really wanted to use canteens in the first place. So kinda a nothing take, really. None of them are really over or underappreciated. It's just depending on the situation. Are there more uses for crit canteens because there's less battalions present? Probably. But is it more beneficial for somebody to be invulnerable or do more damage? Really depends. If you have to stall out enemy Uber, having a crit canteen really doesn't help you there. So it's kind of situational dependence, right?
fun idea for an alternative game mode held back by its gambling aspect. MvM would have been much more popular and welcoming for new players if encouragement of gambling and farming for items like Australiums simply never became a thing. It's like half and half there. I agree that it would be more welcoming. Lower stakes naturally lead to less conflict overall, and Boot Camp definitely has a more favorable reputation than Man Up in that regard. More popular though, definitely not. Bootcamp as a game mode would definitely improve if there was more harmony between skill levels, and yes, that likely would lead to an increase in players wanting to try it out. But it would come at the expense of the entire slot machine baby side of the man-up community tapping out of the game entirely. That surplus of players would not nearly be enough to make up for that exodus. Not in a million years. Add skill.
So I don't know. Does it really like, would people be playing MvM the way they're playing it today, by today's standard? Would it have evolved in a way that it is without the loot aspect behind it? What if it was just like pastime, for instance? Would people still have flocked to the game mode if there was no incentive behind it? What if pastime had a loot system where you could play games against other people for a prize, but then you had to beat like the other team to win something? I don't know. Would it be? I'm not sure. It's kind of a niche game mode already. The player base definitely has been dwindling. I believe, anyway, that it's been dwindling over the years. It's not as profitable anymore, so there's not as many people playing it, right? Because it's just... yeah, it's too diluted in a way, the loot system. Whereas you could sell specialized killstreak things at the beginning of the 2 cities, and that would still fund your next tour in a way. So now it's kind of, the incentive's not there as much anymore as it used to be. So the players aren't there, and if there wasn't any like value to be had anymore anywhere in like man-up, I think the player base would significantly drop off too. So there's definitely some incentive, but I don't know. It would probably end up like a, I'm just gonna say, like a pastime, or like maybe a manpower mode in a way. It would be cooperative, not against others, but still kind of a thing that you maybe just load up a couple hours and then play because you have the desire to do so. Whereas nowadays a lot of players still play it just to farm like Aussies or money, or for the big thing like the golden pan, right? I don't know.
Based matchmaking, but with tour counts. I can foresee a lot of people, high tours and low tours alike, actually championing this change, which I find kinda sad, to be honest. The obvious problem here is balance. If you have a bunch of shitty 3-tour demo night mains, they'll never finish the mission. But on the other hand, if you have a full lobby of high tour poop sockers, imagining a bear will eat them if they don't clear bot bash in 22 minutes, they're gonna burn it down with no challenge whatsoever. That alone makes it dead on arrival, but I also just think it's good for MvM players of all skill levels to coexist and intertwine. In fact, when I was a new player, I loved playing with high tours. I knew there'd probably be some cool tech I could recognize and later try out, and I knew I wouldn't be spending an hour with a group that doesn't know how to block a super scout. I know a lot of MvM updates in recent years have done a lot to dissuade the commingling between different skill levels, and in my opinion, it's probably been the worst thing to happen to the game mode over time. But I really don't think doubling down on that philosophy in the modern day is the right call either. High tours sticking to their own don't often speak to each other because they don't have to, and low tours sticking to their own often do talk a fair bit, but it's usually related to the frustrations of the mission not going in a positive direction. There's a healthy balance that produces much more enjoyable player interactions, and I wish it was encouraged a lot more. But let's end this video on a high note.
I don't think... okay, I think it depends on how big the player pool of MvM actually is. You could always have more options, right? If it fits into like the matchmaking system and the players are actually there. Having the option, if you want to be primarily queuing or being matched into teams that have a certain threshold of like tours completed. You could have that as a choice if you wanted to, if the player pool is there to actually be able to split it up that way, right? But enforcing it is kind of a bad idea, because this teams that form just with high tours, with low tours, like he said, that work off of each other, right? A lot of people enjoy that system, and if they don't want to, they have the choice themselves to just play with friends as well if they really want to. And I also would think that it's kind of boring to a lot of people that solo queue when they're suddenly forced into games that have a lot of experienced players, making it kind of a boring situation overall. Like everything would become just so much easier on like an extreme level where it's just not fun to even play anymore in the first place. So I think that's just not a good idea. That enforcement of it anyway. If you have the choice and it works, fair enough. If you want to do it that way, then why not? Having more choice is always good.
MvM is a more enjoyable experience with a bunch of friends than regular TF2 is. In terms of like, what's the largest delta between the multiplayer experience and the single player experience, I think MvM easily wins out. It's applicable to most multiplayer games, but man vs. machine especially. If you want to have the most amount of fun, I'd say invite a few buddies along for the ride. Plus, if you do encounter a hostile shitbag, you'll have vote kick majority to get him out of the game. And that's pretty cool too. So, there it is. A full hour's worth of yapping about controversial MvM takes.
Yeah, that last take is kinda... I don't know. You could say... I mean, it depends on what you really want, right? I used to play a lot of casual before with friends and all that. It was cool. Like, playing together, even on my own, playing on a team, like helping each other out, defeat the other team, right? But at some point, I don't know, I just didn't have that need to be better than the other side anymore. Like, I didn't feel like that gave me anything. Like, I didn't feel better at the end of the day because I won or lost against somebody, right? I found it more interesting to like work together with others to complete a goal, right? If that makes sense. And even though that still happens in casual, it kind of works a little bit different in MvM because you're not fighting against other humans, right? So you're just working together as a team to accomplish something else without basically stomping down on other people. And you could also just have a really cool balanced like back and forth game that just lasts forever on Powerhouse, for instance, 5CP or whatever the hell, where teams are so balanced that games just go on and on for like an hour or two, which is cool to see that balance, right? But it's also kind of like at some point you want to accomplish something. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't need that type of feeling anymore, where I just have to be better than other people or feel better because I beat them in this one fucking thing in this one game, right? I don't know, maybe it has something to do with Meet Your Match too, where Valve just all changed it from not having, you know, servers where you can go and jump into anymore, where you're just getting matched into, and maybe the whole bot situation also fed into that as well, and the overall quality of how they did updates was just not there anymore. That ultimately just drove me away from casual. I don't know, maybe it's like an amalgamation of all of those things together. It's just how it is. I haven't played casual in like, what, 4 or 5 years probably, and I don't really miss it. But would I go back to it if they released more like contract-based things? If they did an update again where you had contracts or some other objectives that you had to complete on on games for something to gain out of, like new items or cosmetics or whatever you can do. Maybe if it's worth my time. But right now I don't really have any incentive, and I like more MvM more, the official one and the community one, than the actual game. And those people that enjoy Team Fortress 2 Classic more, or the other variants that are out there. So it really just depends on what you're looking for in a game, right? If you want to have the experience of how TF2 was when you maybe started as like a first time player with the orange box and all that, right? So you really got the choice, right? Like Team Fortress is really the game where you have the choice what you want. It's probably in there, right? If you wanted to have prop hunt, it was in there. Some fucking alternate game modes. If you had some trade servers, you had some goof servers, you had some escape servers or whatever. It's really all there. And then even outside of the game, you have alterations of it. So it's kind of cool in a way, which you don't really have in any other games really, other than maybe Gary's mod or some other games like that, where you have so much choice on what you really want to do with it, really. So yeah, but MvM takes bad opinions. I mean, there was some in there, not too crazy, other than the maybe edgy ones where they want to fucking cut themselves because they're so toxic and cool or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Kinda probably the end of it. I mean, he said it. It's been an hour. There's not really too many bad MvM opinions anymore. I mean, there's only so much in MvM, right? You could have some more bad MvM opinions on, like, custom things, maybe, that the community shat out over at Potato or Moonlight, where it's just some wild, ridiculous crap, where you're just like, okay, that's just really stupid. How do you enjoy that? I don't know. But beyond that, probably not too much more in there. And yeah, that's about it, really, I guess. Not the weirdest shit over here. And one interesting thing we could actually look at, which I found even before this video, was he had a post, which is kind of interesting metric wise. I wish, can you actually see how many people vote on this? 17,000 votes, yeah, okay. So that's 17,000 votes, right? He asked if you could 100% as honest as possible, accurately sake, we appreciate it. Has my content inspired you to start playing more MvM? And these metrics are kind of interesting. Is there really just a split down the middle? And in a way, it's kind of perfect as well, because some people started playing because of his videos, which is good, right? More players in the game mode is always good. Play more often because of his videos was 33%, and then I said no. I mean, it had no impact on how much I play MvM, because I would have played MvM regardless of whether he existed or not with his videos, right? So that's my choice there. Nothing specifically against Weezy and his content. So that's just how it works for me. And there's still a fraction of people that have never played MvM despite all his videos, even though he's more an MvM focused TF2 YouTuber, right? So that's kind of interesting too. Like, they don't they generally just enjoy like hearing about it, watching it, maybe see what's going on there, but no interest in actually playing it. Not even the free game modes, which is kind of crazy. But that just goes back to how, like, what do you want out of the game, right? So in a way, this is how you would probably envision it to be, right? A split down 50-50 in a way. Pretty cool.